So maybe you believe, like I do, that birth work is kingdom work. If that's you, can I get a yes? How many of you believe that birth work is kingdom work and that our calling is to support families through every kind of birth, um, from a place of, well, from the gospel? um, so if we really believe that changing the world for the Lord begins with birth, then we have to be willing to face all parts of birth, even the really hard ones. And the truth is that sometimes babies die during birth, or during pregnancy. And it's not easy to talk about. Nobody wants to face the reality of death, but it's really important that we talk about it because it's real. So I would guess that in a group this size, many, if not all of us, have a baby in heaven. And if you don't have a baby in heaven, then we know someone who does. So if you have a baby not here with us, I would love to hear about them. I have three babies in heaven. We only named one of them and we named him Peanut. So, but I have three babies not here in heaven. Um, but as Christian birth workers, we know that our calling is to serve families through every kind of birth, because the way that we show up in loss has the power to bring healing and even glimpses of hope, even during loss. Wow, there's a lot of babies represented in heaven here. So thank you for sharing with me. Um, so there are three times in life when a woman is the most open to the gospel. First, birth; second, marriage; and third, death. Ah, there we go. Um, and when a baby dies during birth, two of those moments collide. There's birth and death in the same moment. So that is why this work matters so deeply. But most of us feel totally unprepared for when a mom that we're supporting goes through loss. So many of us are not trained in that, and we're just not ready and we're not prepared. In fact, just last night, a sweet doula friend of mine texted me and said she just had a client go through a miscarriage and she realized how completely unprepared she was for that. She really didn't know what to do. And she did her best, of course, because that's what we do, but she wished that she had had more preparation. And I've gotten that kind of message dozens of times from other birth workers, doulas, nurses, even ER nurses, um, midwives. A midwife told me a couple weeks ago that in her entire midwifery training, they didn't touch on loss at all. And that was kind of shocking to me because loss is such a big part of birth. But if you have come into birth work and yet you're still terrified of attending a stillbirth, or you're afraid of having a mom have a miscarriage because you just don't feel prepared, I want you to hear me clearly. If you feel that way, it's not your fault. Most doulas really don't get any training in supporting families through loss. And if you do get any training, it's like one module in your doula training. And I'm not faulting doula trainings for that at all, because the goal of a doula training is to teach you how to support a live birth, right? And that's a good thing. That's what we need to know. And yet, so many of us don't know how to support loss. We're taught to focus on live births, not the other half of the story. But here's the truth. Statistically speaking, 1 in 3 pregnancies ends in loss. And the evidence shows that that number might actually even be higher than that. Um, my own midwife said that they go through seasons. Like last October, they had probably 4 out of every 5 pregnancies end in loss. And so loss is a really real thing. We will face it. 1 in 160 babies are born still in the 3rd trimester. And 1 in 20 moms will go through more than one loss. That's a lot of babies who are not making it earthside, and that's a lot of loss that we are going to end up having to support as doulas, midwives, whatever part of birth work that you're in. So, let me ask you this. Would you agree that being a truly prepared birth worker means being ready for all birth experiences? Or just some, just the happy births? Well, here's the good news. Yeah, Pascaline says all. I agree. Here's the good news. You guys, you can do this. You don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to fix the pain. You just have to be willing to show up and hold hope for their clients when they can't see that hope themselves. Now, in case we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Sarah. This is my beautiful family. My husband is Colton. He owns a construction company. And then we have three babies in heaven, like I said. My son Josiah is our rainbow baby. And then Jenna, our daughter, was born 4 months and 3 days ago. So um, I have a lovely family, but I'm a home birth mama. I love Dr. Pepper, and I think hospitals have the best ice ever. I love hospital ice. I'm not your super crunchy type doula, but I'm definitely someone who loves helping moms walk through both birth and loss with hope and joy, and even holding space for the hard moments. I'm a birth and bereavement doula, but I'm also a lost mom, like I said, and my passion is making sure that no family ever walks through loss alone. So let me share how I got here. When I first saw that first positive pregnancy test back in 2020, I was over the moon excited, so thrilled. My husband and I had been told that we might not ever be able to get pregnant, and so we were just so ecstatic when God allowed us to get pregnant. And I ran to my husband and I told him, "We're going to be parents." And I 100% believed without a doubt that a positive pregnancy test meant that we would get to bring a baby home in 9 months. But just a few weeks later, the doctor told us there's no heartbeat, and suddenly everything changed for us. I carried my baby, not alive, in my womb for 5 weeks, knowing that he was gone. And when I finally did experience the miscarriage, I realized something really, really important. I had given birth. I had contractions, my cervix dilated, and I gave birth to a baby. But the people who were supposed to support me, my birth team, they just did not know what to do. They were unprepared, and their words and actions ended up creating so much more trauma than the loss itself did. Um, but that moment changed everything for me. I was already a doula, and so I started sharing my story. And soon I began to hear other mom stories, some beautiful, heartbreaking, but beautiful stories, and some that were just so traumatic. Stories of doulas who completely disappeared and left the room during a stillbirth and never came back. Stories of nurses who said things like, "Well, it's not like it's a real baby, so I don't know why you're crying." Horrible, horrible things like that. And I realized that our words and actions as birth workers can either bring healing or more heartbreaking. Our words mattered. So that's when my goal changed. It wasn't just about supporting moms anymore, um, which that was still a huge part of it, but it became about holding hope for my clients, even during loss, so that they weren't alone. Because here's the truth: I don't have to fix it, and you don't have to fix it. We just have to sit with our clients in the uncomfortable moments, to love them with the love of Christ, and to believe that hope still exists even when everything feels dark. And in the last 5 years, I have dedicated so much of my life to learning how to do that. And I can tell you now, I'm not afraid anymore of attending births that include loss, because I've seen firsthand what happens when hope walks into the room. And I believe that hope is a person, and that person's name is Jesus. Hope is more powerful than fear, and as a Christian birth worker, I can bring hope into a room where everything feels hopeless and dark. And that's what I want for you today: to feel confident and compassionate and unafraid, to know that you can show up in love and make a real difference for moms experiencing loss. So, that's what this class is about: how to support families through loss with confidence and compassion, and how to avoid the 5 most common mistakes that cause additional trauma for moms. So by the end of our time together, my prayer is that you'll understand this: the only way to truly support your clients through loss is to hold space for both hope and grief at the same time. Because grief doesn't erase hope, and hope doesn't erase grief. They go hand in hand together. If you're ready to learn how to hold hope in the darkness, would you type "I'm ready" in the chat? Because I don't want to keep going until everybody's ready. Well, at least 3 of us are ready, so I'm going to keep going. If you are ready, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to learn this together. So let's get into the heart of this. So the first way that I see birth professionals unintentionally adding trauma to a client's experience is with their words. And this is the most important one, really, of the 5. Words are so important. And the words we choose, how we talk, what we say, how we respond, and our body language too, I'm including that in words, that can either build safety or it can deepen the wound and add trauma to the whole situation. Actually, this is the most common question that I get from birth workers. They tell me, I just don't know what to say and I don't want to say the wrong thing, so maybe I just shouldn't even be there. And if you've ever thought that, that's okay. I think so many of us feel that way. So let me share a couple of real stories so that you can see just how powerful our words can be. Both of these are going to be negative stories of how people use their words the wrong way. But a mom once told me that she had experienced multiple miscarriages, and she and her husband were grieving so deeply, not just the loss of their babies, who didn't make it earthside, but they were also grieving the dream of potentially being able to raise living children. They'd been through so many losses, they weren't sure if they would be able to have a living child. So she told her doctors all of this and was hoping for some help, but all that she got from her doctor was, well, at least you know you can get pregnant. And you're so young. Besides, it's not like any of those babies were even babies yet. At least you didn't get to know them. Can you imagine how those words landed for this mom? That phrase, "at least," sounds so harmless, but it's absolutely devastating. The words "at least" minimize grief. They dismiss a person's pain and they imply that they shouldn't feel so bad. Imagine saying that after someone's grandma died. Well, at least your grandpa's still alive. Or at least she lived a long life. No, that diminishes their grief. We would never say those kinds of things, right? So why do people say it when a baby dies? The words "at least" need to disappear from our vocabulary. Here's another story. One of my good friends lost her twins at 20 weeks, and she told me that she was in the hospital for a while, and a nurse saw her crying and said, "Hey, stop crying. God is still good. He doesn't want you to be sad." And then another one added, "Oh, God just needed some more angels in heaven. So he took your babies to heaven because he needed some more angels." Now, this mom does believe that God is good, but those phrases didn't comfort her in her grief. They just made her feel like her grief was a sign of weak faith. Have you ever seen well-meant spiritual comments that fall flat in grief? I know I have. Platitudes like "everything happens for a reason," or "just be grateful," or "look on the bright side," or "God is so good." They might come from a kind place and they might not even be true things, but they often silence grief instead of soothing it and bringing hope in the grief. And what happens when someone feels silenced? Well, they shut down and they stop trusting you. So things like "you shouldn't cry" or "hey, at least God is still good," those send the message that your grief is not okay and you need to suck it up so that I feel comfortable in your grief. That's not what we want to do. So please leave all those platitudes behind. When you're supporting someone through loss, your goal isn't to fix their sadness or fill the silence. It's to help them feel seen and safe and held. Now, what can you say instead? Because I don't want you to go into a room after a loss so afraid of saying the wrong thing that you just say nothing at all. It's better to show up than it is to have perfect words. So here's a simple approach. Listen first. Really listen with your heart. Pay attention to what they're saying, but also pay attention to their body language. Body language can tell you so much. Then ask questions. Ask them what their baby's name is if they named their baby. Ask them what they remember about their pregnancy. Ask them, just ask them how they're feeling. Ask questions. And then speak from your heart, not from a script. It's so much better to just say, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I don't know what to say, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. I often begin with, tell me about your baby. And do you know what happens? Moms light up. They share their baby's name, what they imagine their life would have been like, what she misses. Would you agree that one of the greatest gifts that you can give is permission to talk about a baby? I love the saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is especially true when a mom has lost a baby. A mother who has just heard there's no heartbeat doesn't care about your credentials. She doesn't care whether you're a certified birth doula. She doesn't care whether you're a trauma-informed specialist. She doesn't care. All she cares about is that you see her and that you see her baby. So caring matters so much more than your expertise. And sometimes the best thing you can say is just nothing. When I had my first miscarriage, we had a couple ladies from our church came over and they literally just sat in my living room and let me cry. And they didn't say anything. They just were there for me in my grief. And that meant so much more to me than any words that they could have ever said. So sometimes it's important to just be there, listen and hold space and let her lead. It's okay to be silent and just be present with someone who is grieving. It's uncomfortable, but it's okay to sit in the uncomfortable with them. So let's move on to the next two mistakes I see all the time. These two mistakes go together. These two mistakes are ghosting the client, either number one, by disappearing completely, or number two, by emotionally checking out. So one mom told me that when she texted her doula to say that she was miscarrying, she didn't hear back for hours. And when the doula finally did respond, all she said was, I'm sorry that you lost your baby, but you will owe me the retainer fee since it was before 30 weeks. That's it. Then silence. That's all she got. And the mom said we felt so abandoned by this doula. The dad said he didn't even want to think of hiring another doula for their pregnancy after a loss because they had been so hurt by the doula previously. So being present matters more than being perfect. Another mom told me that her doula was so warm and kind and supported them so well up until the moment her baby was born. But the baby was born still, and no one knew that the baby had passed away during her labor. Suddenly, it was like that new doula became someone else. She was suddenly cold and distant. She avoided eye contact, and the mother said it felt like she had vanished emotionally the moment that baby had been born. So it is possible to be physically present, but emotionally gone. And I'm asking you, don't ghost your clients if and when a loss happens. Don't disappear. Don't emotionally check out. Your presence is sacred in that room, and your client needs you. Whether it's a physical room that you're in, or whether it's texting her, bringing a meal over, something like that. You need to commit to staying the course even when things get hard. That's your job as a birth worker. This part is so important. And of course, please don't negate the fact that you do have to take care of yourself because you don't want to burn out or hurt yourself. So if you need to leave the room to take a second, that's okay, but do come back in and don't completely disappear forever and ghost your client. So the fourth one, oops, sorry. The fourth one is treating the baby as less than human. Many families have told me it was like our baby didn't even count. No one even asked his name. And I've even been in some loss situations where they don't even tell the mom the time of birth. They just tell her the time of death, or things like that. So it was like one mom told me it was as if my baby's life only mattered while I was pregnant, and once he was gone, everyone pretended that he never existed. So acknowledging that this baby existed and that their life matters honors this family's grief and love. Another time, I had a client who their baby had a fatal diagnosis and they knew that the baby would pass away before birth. So when the baby did pass away, I went to their induction to support this family. And I got there, we checked into the hospital, we sat down and we're waiting for the doctors and nurses to come in and start the whole induction process. And I turned to the parents and I said, "So, what's your baby's name? I would love to call them by their name as we go through this birth." And the dad just burst into tears. And so did the mom. But the dad told me no one, not a single person, had asked this baby's name. And it was almost like because they knew that he would die, that his life didn't matter. So when I asked him and his wife the name of their baby, that moment really mattered because it told these parents, your child matters. Your child is real and their life is sacred because they are made in the image of God. You, as a birth worker, you have the power to say things like, "Oh, he has your nose," or "This baby has your hair," or "She's so cute." Acknowledge that they lived and acknowledge that they are a human being. Number 5 is forgetting that you matter too. Whoops. Your emotional health matters. Your ability to recover matters. Most doulas that I talk to feel really burned out and exhausted after they support a loss. And I know we feel that way through live births too. Um, but you need to prepare emotionally, mentally, and spiritually for what a loss can hold. Education plus emotional readiness creates better care for your clients and for you. So you need to understand what a birth is going to look like when there's a loss. You need to understand what the postpartum period looks like when there's no baby to nurture and how all of that feels physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So if you've been thinking, yes, this is exactly what I need, then I'm so glad you're here. Because the truth is, by being here, by saying yes to this webinar, you're already part of changing how we care for families through loss. You've already said yes to learning how to choose your words carefully, to stay present when it's hard, to honor every baby's life, and to take care of your own heart in the process. Thank you for showing up today. Because when you stand with a family in their darkest moments and you say, "I see your baby, I'm here, I care," then you're bringing light into the darkness. And that, my friends, is how we hold hope, one family at a time. So if you've been nodding along this whole time and thinking, yes, this is exactly what I needed to better support my lost mama clients, then I've created something else for you. Let me ask you something really quick. Has this webinar stirred something inside you today? Maybe a conviction or a calling, or even just a little whisper of, "I need to know how to do this better." If that's you, would you type, "Yes, that's me," in the chat? Or something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly those words. Great. So what you're feeling right now, that tug on your heart, that's not random. That's purpose. That's calling. That's God saying, "I've placed you here in this work for such a time as this." If we really believe that God is sovereign, and I do, then we believe that God brings each of us to our clients at the right moments for them and for us. And so if God allows you to go through loss with a client, then he has brought you to that for such a time as this. And you need to be prepared. So many birth workers have told me, "I just didn't know what to do. I wasn't trained for that." And maybe you can relate to that too. There's a huge gap in our industry, and that gap is leaving both doulas and midwives and nurses and birth support people and families hurting. and it's not your fault, but that's why I created Holding Hope Bereavement Doula Training. This is where we will fill that gap together. This training is where you'll learn how to show up, heart open and hands open, for families walking through the unimaginable, and do it in a way that protects your heart too. So wouldn't you love to feel confident instead of afraid when a lost client reaches out? And to feel confident when you find out that a client who's already hired you goes through loss? Wouldn't you love to know exactly how to walk into a hospital room or a birth space or a home and be the steady, compassionate presence that a family needs during loss? Because that's exactly what I'll be teaching you inside of Holding Hope. Everything we've been talking about today, every story, every what not to say, every way to stay present when others pull away, we're going to go deeper into all of that in this course. So you will learn how to care for your own mind and heart so that when loss happens, and it will, you don't walk away traumatized or burned out. You'll understand what birth looks like at every stage, from the earliest miscarriage through full-term stillbirth, so that you can confidently support your clients physically and emotionally. You'll learn how to support families through the birth and postpartum period with compassion and skill, even when their arms are empty. And as a bonus, you'll learn how to support families through pregnancy after a loss, because that is so different from a pregnancy when there has been no loss before. So, if that sounds exactly like the kind of training that you've been praying for or that you feel like you need, let me know that in the chat. But while you do that, let me tell you what's included. Holding Hope is a 10-week online training program. It's live, interactive, and deeply relational. We'll meet via Zoom once a week for class sessions where I'll teach you, you'll ask questions, and we'll walk through real life scenarios together. So, how many of you also love hands-on learning, not just listening to lectures? Because we're going to get some of those too. We'll have real life assignments with real application and real heart work. A few reflection assignments to help you process what you're learning each module, as well as 2 bigger projects, a book report and a community project where you'll identify local resources in your area for families experiencing loss. Because I don't want this to just be a head knowledge thing. I want it to transform how you serve families right where you are. Because transformation matters more than information. Then at the end of our 10 weeks together, you will have full access to a bereavement resource library. It's full of printable materials, client resources, scripts, guides, all kinds of things that you can use in your own practice, or you can gift them to your clients as part of your healing journey or their healing journey. And then one of the fun things about doing a class with other people is that you get community, a sisterhood of birth workers who walk the same road with you, because learning how to support loss is a sacred work, and it's not meant to be done alone. So all of that is what you'll find inside of Holding Hope, and here's what you need to know. Enrollment is open right now, and I forgot to get the link. Shanna, do you have the link to be able to put in the chat? Give me a second. Let me stop sharing, and I will get that link.
I'll go get it. You keep going.
Okay. So anyway, it's available right now. Our first session begins the first week of January. And if you sign up in the next, I think it's 72 hours with a code that I will put in the chat, it's Holding Hope 25. If you sign up, then you'll get $100 off the course. So I'll put that code in the chat. Okay. So 10 weeks that will completely change the way that you view loss and the way that you support families through it. This is in conjunction with the global birth community. We're doing this whole collaboration thing to be able to teach Christian doulas and midwives and other Christian birth workers how to support loss. You'll walk away confident and equipped and full of peace, knowing exactly how to hold space for grief and hope at the same time. If your heart is saying, "Yes, I'm ready," then don't wait. Now is the time. You've spent this whole session saying yes to supporting families, yes to compassion, yes to growth, yes to being the kind of birth worker who shows up when others don't. And now is the time to say yes to a training that will carry you there. Because the world needs doulas and midwives and birth workers who can hold hope. And I believe that you are one of them. So come join me inside Holding Hope Bereavement Doula training, and let's change the way that we support families through loss together.
Sarah, we have a great question. Do you
Yeah,
cover how to support non-Christian families?
yes. Yes, I do. That's a good question. So are there any other questions about the webinar itself or about the training? And while you type your questions, I'm going to answer my babysitter real quick. Okay. What is the time limit and is there a timeline to finish? I don't know. Shanna, do you have a timeline with your other trainings? Because at this point, like, we'll do the 10 weeks of live videos, but we'll also record all of the videos and so that you can go back if you need to. I don't think we really need to put a timeline on it, but I don't know. What do you normally do, Shanna?
So we don't usually have a timeline.
Okay.
I don't know why my light is so bright. It's adjusting. Yeah, so we don't have a timeline, but we encourage in the first week of class to write out your timeline goals of when you want to finish all of your portal work, when you want to finish your book report, when you want to finish, all of the things so that you have your own timeline that we can help hold you accountable to.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Any other questions? Let me go back and see if there were questions earlier that I missed. Yeah, Pascaline, you're right that people don't want to acknowledge loss because they feel that they will make things worse. And that is so true. But I've literally talked to hundreds of moms through loss and after loss, and they all feel abandoned and alone if you don't acknowledge their loss. And so many of them end up like completely cutting out family members and friends because they didn't acknowledge the loss. And they're like, well, if they don't acknowledge my loss, then they don't care about me. So why would I keep them in my life? Um, which is another reason that it's important to know how to support loss because they need that support, and cutting people out only ends up hurting them and they don't even realize it. So, okay. Well, if there's no more questions, then we can be done. But thank you so much for coming. I'm pretty sure that we recorded all of this. So Shanna can send out the recording for all of this soon. Chin, that's a really good question. And we talk about that in the course of how to handle families who have a different faith or cultural background. Um, and it's with a lot of grace and a lot of prayer. I'll give that as a short answer. Um, but it's a lot of learning where they are coming from and gently saying, hey, um, I'm a believer and I believe that hope comes from Jesus. And I understand that you're not a believer, so I'm going to support you anyway. But hope does come from Jesus. So,
Hey, Sarah, do you want to close us in prayer for these women and the ministry that the Lord has for them?
yeah, I would love to.
Awesome.
Lord, thank you so much for today. And thank you for the sweet ladies who have come to this webinar. Um, thank you for the work that they do in the birth world. It's so important. And we do believe that birth work is kingdom work and that it is serving people and serving you by serving women in labor and in birth and in postpartum and in all of that stuff. So thank you for the calling that you've given these women and thank you for the work that they do. And I pray as they each leave and go about their day, or I know some of them are probably going to bed soon here. I pray that you would bless and thank you again so much for today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for joining us. We're so glad you were here at Global Birth Community. Birthwork is ministry. Our team will be praying for you as you minister to the families in your community.